Hello, I am Vic Gerami, and it is time to get blunt. My publication is called The Blunt Post, and my radio show is called The Blunt Post with Vic. And there's a reason for that. I have always, since I've known myself, appreciated honesty, transparency, directness, and yes, sometimes bluntness. Especially when I see some politicians lie, say whatever that they want to say at that moment to get away from something, even though later they'll be proven wrong or proven that they were lying. And so I never stop being amazed at how easily some people can just say something or promise something that they have no intention of doing. This is all intensified because we just passed the election, and this was all it was a relevant topic, relevant part of all of that we went through. And then again, the fact that on September 27th of last year, 2020, countries of Azerbaijan and Turkey orchestrated a genocidal attack and ethnic cleansing against Armenians of Artsakh, also known as Nagorno-Karabakh. As an Armenian American, it touched me very deeply, especially seeing that a tiny country like Armenia and a tiny region like Artsakh was not getting any attention because Azerbaijan has a lot of oil to spare, and Turkey is in NATO, even though it shouldn't be. So we all had to sort of get in gear. So a week after this attack happened and people were being slaughtered, a colleague and I were asked to co-produce these celebrity PSAs. Actually, it was my idea to do a celebrity PSA to bring the word out about what was happening to mainstream media and people who may not have heard about it. So my colleague is an entertainment publicist. I've interviewed celebrities for my syndicated column. So we sent out requests to everyone we knew to do this 1-minute PSA on their phone. Very simple. We even sent them a script. Very humanitarian, and all it said was, I stand with Artsakh and Armenia at the end. So that's what brings me to Marianne Williamson. So I've known Marianne Williamson for many, many years. I've used to go to her lectures at Saban Theater, read her books. I've been a fan, and I always believed her. I believed when she said that she was not an insider if she were to be elected as a congressperson when she ran for Congress, and then again last year for president. I believed everything she said about spirituality, compassion, social justice. So, and I had always tried to do my part to elevate her, highlight her, and to spread her message. When I was with Frontiers magazine many years ago, we did an interview with her, and we featured her. About 3 years ago, I interviewed her for my syndicated column, 10 Questions with Vic. And then in December of 2019, when she was still a candidate for president, I sent her an email, and Marianne is usually very good at replying right away, and said, Marianne, if you're going to be in LA, I'd like to interview you. And coincidentally, she was planning to come to LA, and so she came to KPFK studios. This was pre-COVID, so, and she came, she was very down, very distraught. She was not the Marianne I knew, who was always very confident and put together and sort of, positive. And so I started to interview, and I asked her just a very simple, general question. I said, what's your perspective and take on the campaign so far? And so her first answer started with, it's been brutal. And she went from there. And I just sort of got quiet and let her, say her piece. And I realized that she's not in a good place. But I don't like to take advantage of those moments and dig into it. I let her say whatever she wanted to say, and then I tried to steer the conversation away to something positive. And so I said, so 2020 is coming up, and what are your plans for the campaign? And then she kind of dropped the bomb, which was, she said, well, I don't know. I'm just sort of trying to figure that out, which to me, it was obvious that she was either about to drop out of the race or thinking about it. But again, I didn't want to make her feel uncomfortable, and I thought that she may later regret having said that, so I didn't ask like a follow-up question. I just sort of went from there. We did the interview, and then for about 45 minutes later, or for 45 minutes, I should say, she had to wait for her car. So we had a conversation at KPFK's lobby, and she just basically, said a lot of things that I won't say. I will say one thing that was very surprising is that when I asked her asked her what she thought about Mayor Pete Buttigieg, she said he's really smug, and which I thought was interesting. And we did the interview, she left, and then, not surprisingly, I received an email from her about, I think 5 days later, asking me if I would edit that portion of the interview where she talks about not knowing what the next thing is in the campaign, basically saying that she's thinking about dropping out. I wasn't surprised. But I also knew that if we broadcast the interview as it was, that would have been a sort of a big headline maker. And me and my show would have been sort of credited in mainstream media for sort of breaking it, if you will. But that's not the kind of person I am, and I believe in loyalty. So I said, absolutely. So I emailed my producer and I said, please take out anything in the interview that alludes to Marianne sort of not being sure about her campaign. And we aired the edited version, and I sent Marianne a link to the edited version so she knows. I never heard back. She didn't acknowledge that I had done exactly what she'd asked. Now let's go back to a week after Armenians of Artsakh are being slaughtered by not just Azerbaijanis and Turkish, but they had recruited ISIS, recruited mercenaries from Syria, Pakistan, Libya, and were indiscriminately shelling civilians. They were firing white phosphorus munitions to set entire villages and forests on fire. It was just a horrendous situation. And by the way, it still continues. Azerbaijan still keeps about 100 Armenian prisoners of war, torturing them, mutilating them. Some have been executed, and so on and so forth. So when we set out these requests for celebrities and high-profile people to do these 1-minute phone PSAs, one of the first people that came to my mind was Marianne Williamson. I thought, if anyone's going to do it, it's her. And my emails are very thorough, so I sent her exactly what's happening, even links to articles about it, and the script, and that's that. All the facts, everything she would need to know. We immediately got Kim Kardashian, Serge Tankian from System of a Down, Ed Begley Jr., Sally Kirkland, Andrea Martin, Congressman Adam Schiff, and many other celebrities that just immediately said yes. I didn't hear back from Marianne, and I thought that was odd because she'd always replied to my emails. So I followed up with her, and I also tweeted to her. I DM'd her. I tried everything to get her attention. I thought, well, maybe, she missed the email or whatnot. But after multiple follow-ups and emails, nothing. I heard nothing. So about a month and a half ago, I thought, we always succumb to politics of respectability. We always succumb to this notion of let's not make waves, let's not burn a bridge, and those kinds of things by holding people accountable and pointing out hypocrisy and when they fail us. Because people are dying. This isn't about Marianne Williamson or some celebrity being asked to go to the opening of a gallery or a film premiere or do a red carpet or do a charity event pro bono. This is people dying. This is a humanitarian issue. This is a crisis that we're trying to stop because a lot of the organizations and nations that are supposed to be doing this, including NATO, European Union, Council of Europe, OSCE, are not doing anything for various reasons, because they have a stake with Turkey and Azerbaijan, and they don't want to make waves there. So I did a video, and I basically talked about this and how disappointed I was that as someone who'd admired Marianne, promoted Marianne, that for a simple request, a humanitarian PSA, she just would ignore me. Of course, this time, as soon as the video went up, literally less than 20 minutes later, I received an email from her saying that she's sorry for not having replied, and that she read it, but she was confused that it was me. But then on the other hand, she said she didn't know anything about what was going on, which then she said was not a good excuse because she could have asked me, she could have read materials at Center, etc. As soon as I read this email, this the way I am, is thought, okay, she's done the right thing. She's reached out to me, and without even her asking me yet, I suspended the YouTube video. And we went back and forth, and a few days later, we spoke. And, she said she didn't make the connection, but she didn't know she was busy. She had a family issue going on and those sorts of things. So she said, you know what, I'm going to do this. I write a column for Newsweek bi-weekly. I've about to submit one of my December ones, but the next one I will do on Artsakh and talk about this. I said, great, it's fantastic. And she also said she was going to do an Instagram live event and take questions. And I said, I will be your researcher, I'll be your resource, and I'll send you all the materials and all the research and everything that you need, because I have them. I have a huge inventory of all of that. So I put together a very thorough package for her of over 100 members of Congress, senators, and representatives, bipartisan, who had condemned Azerbaijan and Turkey. Some of them had called for sanctions against Turkey and Azerbaijan, and others who had called for the recognition of the independent Republic of Artsakh, and so on and so forth. I also sent her links of articles from The Guardian and Forbes and other reputable publications about what had happened and the catastrophe and the crimes against humanity that are being committed against Armenians of Artsakh. Pretty much anything one would need to get up to date on it. And she knew that I was always there if she had any questions. So I sent all this to her and just kind of waited. I thought I'd give her some time. So 2 weeks later, I came across an interesting article, and I sent that to her and didn't hear back. By the way, I hadn't heard back from the first email. And so at some point, she asked me if there was someone she can talk to about this. I said, sure. I'm in touch with several attorneys that are leading attorneys with the Armenian Bar Association, who are activist attorneys, and some of them are in touch with a lot of elected officials in Armenia and Artsakh, and so on and so forth. So I did a cyber introduction of her and this attorney who was going to connect her with the Armenia's Human Rights Defender, okay, a nonprofit, non-governmental agency. I didn't see a reply from Marianne to the attorney saying, let's set up a time or anything like that. Nothing really happened. I followed up with the attorney, who was a friend of mine, and he said, no, I haven't heard anything at all. Now, during this time, I had asked my friend, Councilmember Seppi Shine of West Hollywood, if she would sponsor a resolution so that the city of West Hollywood recognize the independent Republic of Artsakh. And I was working with Seppi on this, and Seppi spearheaded it. Mayor Lindsay Horvath, who I know well, co-sponsored it, and the city of West Hollywood unanimously passed the resolution recognizing Artsakh. So excited and thinking that Marianne would be thrilled about this too, because last I knew she had a place in West Hollywood. I sent her the link to an article covering this big news. And much to my surprise, now it'd been about over a month since she'd said she was going to do her column on Artsakh. She sent me an email, which basically was an indication that she had done nothing. She'd read nothing I'd sent her. She probably didn't want to do it and had no intention of it. And I'm going to read you the email, word for word. A lot of grammatic mistakes and spelling mistakes and such, but I'm going to read it exactly as is. So after all this is what I get. Hey, Vic, you were told me there might be someone I could speak about Romania. Everyone I talk to in DC pretty much sees it is a balancing act. That's it. I'm going to read it again. Hey, Vic, you were told me there might be someone I could speak to about Romania. Everyone I talk to in DC pretty much sees it is a balancing act. So there's so many things wrong with that, starting with the fact that she's saying Romania. So after over a month of talking on the phone and emails and materials, she's calling Artsakh, also known as Nagorno-Karabakh, Romania. The second thing is, she's saying that she's talked to a few people in DC, and they're saying it's a balancing act, which is absurd. First of all, this is someone who ran for Congress and ran for president saying that DC is the problem and politicians in DC are the problem, and we need some spirituality there. Someone who's talked about lobby money and the power of lobbyists and money into DC. Now, let me tell you why there's so much wrong with that. Azerbaijan and Turkey, as they were getting ready to attack Artsakh, they hired 6 of the top lobbying and PR firms in Washington, D.C. to make sure that a lot of American politicians and members of media, editors, publishers, writers, journalists, etc., have a false idea of what's going on and to follow their narrative. So she's handing me this absurd statement that it's a balancing act. How is it a balancing act? Where is the balance? What did Artsakh and Armenia get in this balance? Artsakh lost 80% of its land. 100,000 out of 150,000 people fled. 40,000 people are homeless to this day. Over 3,000 people have died. Over 10,000 people have been injured. Where is the balancing act? Who did that balance? Because Donald Trump did nothing. Neither did Pompeo, the State Department. Where was the balance? This isn't a balancing act. It's published in multiple publications. And Trump has even admitted his conflict of interest with Turkey, having 2 towers in Turkey and building one in Azerbaijan. There was no balancing act. What an absurd Washington establishment answer for someone who constantly condemns the Washington establishment. I mean, really? This is coming from Marianne Williamson? This is the most establishment, old school answer, this false balance, also known as both sidism, that happens not just in DC, but in media, where some lazy journalists try to do these both sidism articles and reports that make no sense. I was just floored by this. So I took some time and I wrote her a reply. And I explained to her how this is not a balancing act. I once again hyperlinked multiple articles, one of them from a Turkish journalist who lives in Israel, who condemns what Turkey and Azerbaijan have done. And this article is just brilliant because she hyperlinks so much evidence about everything that she talks about. And I said, Marianne, if you don't read anything I've sent you, please read this one single article. And I said, also, the person that you wanted to talk to, I did make the introduction. I did a cyber introduction, and if you look through your emails, you'll probably find it. But if you'd like me to do it again, I'm more than happy to do that. And I'm happy to send you anything else that we'd like. And I went and described again about the very proactive way Azerbaijan and Turkey tried to influence Washington, D.C. politicians prior to this. But what she wasn't looking at was that some of our most high profile, some of our most brilliant, and some of our most iconic members of Congress have been condemning Turkey and Azerbaijan about this, such as Senator Bob Menendez of New Jersey, Congressman Adam Schiff, Congresswoman Jackie Spear, Congressman Frank Pallone, Congressman Brad Sherman, Congresswoman Grace Napolitano, and on and on and on. And there are countless members of Congress who have condemned this and who continue to fight to bring justice to this. Why aren't you looking at that if you want to balance anything? So you just talk to a person or two in DC and you make your decision. Of course, I know that basically she wanted to send me that email to just, blow me off. But that's fine, Marianne. World will go on, life will go on. But that's very disappointing. It's very disappointing to hear it from you, who says one thing from a stage, behind a podium, in the spotlight, and when it comes down to it, it's a whole other story. It's disappointing that you said you'd do a Newsweek article, didn't. It's disappointing that you said you would do an Instagram live event, you didn't. It's disappointing that you would call Artsakh Romania, two names that have nothing to do with each other, and that you would choose to ignore my emails, and that's what it is. And it's my job to be honest and to express how I feel, and to be blunt about it. So there it is. Thank you.